everyone, it's Thomas here, and we are back with the low-tech Planet Aquarium build. On the last episode, we talked a little bit about what a low-tech Planet Aquarium is. We also touched on the 3 basic necessities for plants: lighting, CO2, and fertilization. We also picked out that awesome aquarium right there for this build. If you haven't checked that episode out, go have a look. It's awesome. On today's episode, we're talking about turning this into an actual aquarium by adding a filter and a heater so that fish will be happy and healthy in there, and that plants will have a stable environment as well. So let's get to it. When picking out a filter for a low-tech planet tank, you have a ton of options. In fact, you could even just put a regular hang-on aquarium filter on a low-tech planet tank, and it's gonna do a really good job. And the reason that is because your plants in the tank are actually gonna do a portion of the filtration for you. Your fish are gonna produce waste, the plants are gonna soak it up, so that means your filter doesn't have to do as much work. You can pretty much use whatever you want within reason. Now, I usually try not to get a filter that's rated for more than the volume of the aquarium when I'm doing a planet tank. So, you know, if I was going to do, let's say, an African cichlid aquarium, I would probably get a filter rated for 3 times the size of the aquarium that I'm actually putting it on, because I know I'm going to overstock it. They have a lot of waste for that kind of fish, and I need to compensate for that. Not so much for the low-tech planet tank, so we're going to get something rated exactly for this volume or as close to within reason. For a low-tech planet tank like this, I've given myself 2 options, the 2 most obvious: a hang-on-the-back power filter or a canister filter. So a hang-on-the-back power filter is a great option. They're not expensive. They're relatively cost-efficient to operate. They're super easy to install because they're usually fully assembled in the box. When you get them, you just pull them out and stick them on the back of the tank and they're good to go. They're definitely going to be enough of a filter for this tank, as long as it's rated for this aquarium size and it's got some decent mechanical and biological filtration in there. I usually keep the chemicals separate when I'm doing a planet tank, just because I'm worried about carbon sucking up some of the things I actually want in there for the plants. If I am using any kind of fertilizer additives or anything like that, it may remove some of it. So I'll leave it off to the side and use it in a pinch. Maybe I accidentally overdose, or maybe I've got tannins from driftwood. That's what I'm gonna use it for. I just keep it aside. Another really nifty thing is some of the hang-on filter options out there will give you the ability to slow down the flow on the filter, which will help with surface agitation. In a situation like this where I might actually be trying to retain CO2 because I've got plants that are giving off a lot of oxygen and using up CO2, I can slow down that surface agitation, and that'll give me the ability to keep some of the CO2 hopefully in the aquarium for the plants where they need it. The drawback of a hang-on is that it needs servicing a little bit more often. If you compare it to a canister, we're talking, you know, if it's once a month or once every 3 weeks, a canister is going to be once every 2 months, maybe even 3 months. So you are going to be looking at it a bit more often, but cost savings. Canister is a massive upgrade. Like I said, maintenance is going to be pushed off. The cost or the initial investment on a canister is quite a bit higher than a hang-on. It will allow you to stock more fish in the tank, although if you have a heavily planted tank, that's going to allow you to stock more fish as well. So I'm going to say for this build, and for the vein of keeping it low tech and effectively low cost, I'm going to stick with a hang-on filter for this tank. So for this build, I decided to use the AquaClear 20 hang-on filter. It's a fantastic little filter. It's been around for a very long time. The design hasn't changed much in the last 20, 30 years even. The reason it's so popular, it gives you a lot of space for media and is similar to a canister in the fact that it's a large chamber for the media with just a simple basket rather than a slip-in cartridge. So you can actually pack quite a bit of media in there and actually be more selective with what media you want to go in. So you don't have to use AquaClear media. You could go off-brand if you want and you needed to sneak something extra in there like a phosphate remover, which we won't probably need for a planet tank. But it's nice to have the options available. I also really like this filter because this older design has the motor detachable from the actual filter housing. So maintenance is easier. Rather than having to go through the housing to get down to the impeller well or to clean the impeller, you can just take the motor right off and it's a lot more accessible, a lot easier to work with. That also means if anything happened to the motor and it needed to be replaced, I'm not replacing the entire filter. I can just take that motor off and replace it. So I love that this is an easier filter to work with in terms of maintenance and if any repairs needed to happen. This filter also does have that flow regulation I was talking about. So I can adjust the flow on this and turn it down to help with CO2 retention if that is something that I'm going to require for this tank. So I like having that option available there for me. That being said, let's get it out of the box and onto the aquarium where it belongs. Now I'm just going to get the filter installed on the tank, and for the sake of making my life a bit easier, I'm going to use this cart to assemble the filter on. So here we go. Got a nice layer of plastic on the outside of the box. We're just going to take that off. All right. There we go. And like I said, when you open these up, they're almost fully assembled. Now I'm just going to pull this out. The only part that's been removed off the filter is the stem of the filter because it obviously takes up some room. So we're just going to get this out of here. Get that on the back of the tank for now. Now this little black piece that I managed to drop right away is the leveler for the filter so that it sits comfortably on the back of your tank. And I'll do this on the front of the tank because it's a little bit easier for me to see. Oh, look, I think I nailed it right off the get-go. But as you turn this, it will angle the filter either towards the tank or away from the tank. And we want it to sit, you know what, that actually looks great. Right there, so that the top of this is level with the top of the tank so that you don't accidentally have water maybe trying to come out of the back of the filter. Not all filters have that as an option. That's something I really like about the AquaClear. Next, we're just going to stick the intake tube on top of the J tube. And the J tube slides down into the filter like so. Now, here's our basket. I'm just going to rest it on the top of the filter for a sec. And we're going to pull out the media. So we've got a coarse sponge. They actually are very easy to rinse and reuse. But what I'll usually do is I'll buy maybe 2 or 3 extra so that rather than having to rinse it in order to reuse it, I've always got a couple on the go. So I can throw a new one in, take the dirty one, leave it by my cleaning station so I can clean it later and not have to do it right away. And then if I have one more, I can even let it go twice as long. But carbon, that's not going in right now. We're going to set that aside. Now, AquaClear has got some pretty great biological media they're putting in with their filters now. And they give you the biomedia and then a separate little satchel to hold the media in. This is actually probably way bigger than it needs to be. That being said, I will make it smaller by just folding it over on itself after I get it open. So come on, plastic. There we go. Okay. So we're going to open that up and just dump it through. As you can see, I'm dumping it into the box because I know that there's going to be a little bit of sand, essentially, that comes off of it. Just from shipping, they get bounced around. So there you see we've got our little pouch of biomedia. Now there's 2 ways you can do this. You can cut it down to size, which is probably what they intend for you to do. I think it's like this. I'm going to be honest, I haven't used one of these bags in a while. Yes, this makes more sense. So we're going to go all the way down to here, just like that. Give it a little bit of extra space. And this slides over top. Come on, buddy. There we go. And then you just pull it until it clicks into place. And now it's shut. So like I said, if you want, you can trim that off. I'm just going to fold it up and put it in just in case I ever want to use this bag for something else in the future. I like having my options open. So right at the bottom, the first thing I'm going to start with here, there we go, is the sponge. So you just get it in place and you can fold the sides up on it. Then we have lots of room here for the biomedia. And this is what we're going to start with for media in the filter. It's just going to slide down the back like so, like that. There you go. So the filter is essentially ready. Just going to drop the lid on the filter here. Here's the flow control. So when it's, and I'll show you exactly how it works. I'm going to take the lid off. Right down inside here, you can see that when it's in its straight position, it's right over top of the impeller. So the impeller is pulling all of its force through the tube. But as you slide it to the side, it offsets the impeller. So now the impeller is recirculating some of the water inside the filter and also drawing less water from the actual pipe. If less water comes into the pipe, less water flows out of the filter, and that's how you get your reduction in flow. The reason I really like that design is because it doesn't put any back pressure on the filter. So if I had, let's say, a valve that I was closing right above a pump, the pump's still trying to push 100%, but now there's something in the way. So some of that pressure goes back on the pump. Not the best for the longevity of the pump. So this design is something I've always really appreciated. So next thing is a heater. We need a heater. And if you're wondering why I've kind of just left this where it is, because I don't know exactly where I'm going to seat any of this stuff permanently until we get the aquascape done. Because depending on where the aquascape is and how it takes up space in the tank, will determine where really the best spot for the filter is. The last thing I want to do is just put it somewhere and then aquascape over top of it, and either I can see it fully and it's destroying my aquascape visually, or the aquascape's interrupting the filter's ability to do its job. So it's just going to sit there for the time being. Time for a heater. So like any tropical tank, this one's going to need a heater and a thermometer, so you know what the heater is doing. My basement is quite cool. It's a lot cooler than it is on the main floor or outside, and I'm concerned that this aquarium without the help of a heater won't have a stable temperature or simply won't be warm enough. So for that, I've decided to go with a simple Aqueon bimetal thermostat heater. This is going to do a great job for what it is. I've got it for 50 watts, which should be good up to 20 gallons. It's a 17-gallon tank. I'm not too worried there. And I'm going to do my best to hide it behind the aquascape because it's a little clunky, but most heaters are. I've got a Underwater Treasures glass floating thermometer to pair up with it. It's clear with a clear suction cup, so I'm hoping that this blends into the aquarium and doesn't stand out too much because the theme is minimalism here. So let's go get these on the tank. All right, so first off, we're gonna get the heater in there. It's gonna be super, super easy to install, as heaters, basically you take them out of the box here and then get these suction cups on them. Make sure they're set to the temperature you're looking for, and away you go. So, yep, we got what we need. Perfect. Suction cups, super easy to put together. You just slide the suction cup into the bracket. Sometimes giving them a little twist, make sure they're seated all the way. Same with this one. Come on, little buddy. There we go. Perfect. Now on the heater, you might notice that there's a little pilot light to tell you when the heater is currently heating or currently off. So I always try to situate the suction cups in such a way that they will allow you to see that light if you need to. So if you're gonna have the heater all the way in the side of the aquarium, you could easily have it facing forward so you can see it from the front. If you have aquascape in the way, you could turn it to the side so that you could still see it from the side. But being able to see that is a good idea because you'll know how often your heater is actually working, or if it stops working in conjunction with your thermometer. Let's say it looks a little bit low on the thermometer. You can look at the heater. If the heater's not currently on, you might have a problem. Either you got to turn the heater up to get it to come on, or the heater's not working. So now I'm thinking, like I said, I don't know where everything's going to finally rest because until the aquascape's done, I won't really know. But if I have the filter somewhere around here, I can then put the heater beside the filter. Now, why I'd want to do this is because the water being circulated by the filter is going to pass by the heater and then get distributed throughout the aquarium. And that means instead of having the heater basically creating a column of warm water around it that has to drag itself out, the filter is going to be actively pulling that warm water and spreading it out everywhere else to try to keep a more basically homogeneous temperature in there. We want it to be as even across the entire aquarium as possible. So that's a great trick for making sure that your heater is able to make the entire aquarium warm rather than just keeping a corner warm first. And because we want to make sure the heater's working and that the entire aquarium is the correct temperature, we're going to take this thermometer and stick it on the opposite side of the aquarium from the heater as far as possible. For now, it's going to be just up in this corner here. That's pretty far from the actual heater and relatively out of the way. If I find once the aquascape's done that that's just a sore thumb, I might move it to the back corner. So now that we've got a filter, a heater, and a thermometer on that tank, it's essentially ready for fish, but within an aquarium light, we can't put plants in it. So we're gonna get a really nice aquarium light over top of this tank, and I really wanna go into detail about what light we get, why we're getting that specific light, and essentially everything you need to know about plants and lighting. Photosynthesis is not a simple procedure, let's say. It can be a little bit complicated. You can't just throw any light over a planted tank and expect it to do well. So that episode dedicated to lighting is going to give you tons of information that you're going to need to just feel comfortable about plants and the requirement of light. So subscribe because you don't want to miss that one. And I really don't want you to miss that one. I love doing this with you guys, so you got to be there. Otherwise, I'm just going to be in here alone, sad, with a tank. And that's not any kind of tanking that I want to keep on. So I'd rather keep on tanking with you guys. And that thing. Welcome. Sometimes I throw a curveball, sometimes it's right down the pipe and you smash it out of the park. I'm very inconsistent. I kind of got lost, admittedly. I need a heater and a thermometer